Hello, welcome to the NCGA FMC Ag Weather Outlook for October 24th, 2015. I'm John Felt. I'd like to thank my friends at the Nebraska Corn Growers Association for having me up and meeting them this past week. I enjoyed my visit and get to see a little bit of the dry conditions up there in Nebraska, southeast Nebraska. Now, if we look at the U.S. Drought Monitor, what we see here, and I put out a post on this last week, if you happen to read it, on an emerging soil moisture trend. And what we're seeing these pockets of abnormally dry conditions over a good part of the Corn Belt. And sometimes you have a drought that's very localized in one area and it starts to develop, but I think we're seeing sort of a widespread continuing dryness over the region that started a couple months ago, and it continues right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this continue, but pretty much everybody can use some rain right now once the harvesting gets over. And even so, it probably wouldn't be so bad to get a little bit of rain anyway, but it is quite dry. I also want to bring to your attention, look at the exceptional drought, in some cases the extreme drought over the south central U.S., and just sort of focus on that. I'll show you where the rain is falling right now in just a moment. But it was a very quiet week. There was some rain over the central part of the region, over the eastern Corn Belt. You see a lot of brown. That's showing 0 days of rain. Overall, it was a very quiet week. Now, if we look a little bit closer, what we can see here, there were some pockets of rain, in some cases even quite heavy in very small areas here. This yellow is indicating maybe an inch or so, but most of it is in this green, so about a half inch. But that was relatively localized. But look down here in the south central U.S. This is nearing 20 inches of rain. The red is 5 inches or more. And that was an area that was very, very dry. It was in that drought monitor. And remember, if you read one of my posts this week, I also said drought to flood. It looks like we're going to go over parts of Texas and surrounding states from a condition of severe drought to flooding, especially urban and flash flooding. So that can happen. Sometimes that's what breaks a drought. Most likely it doesn't. In many cases, it's just a persistent wet pattern. But we can get this extreme rainfall, and when you get that amount of rain, no matter how dry you are, it's going to run off because the soils are going to compact, and you can get a lot of runoff one way or the other. So over the last 7 days, I see a lot of very dry conditions. That area of white and red is indicating only 10% of normal or less rainfall over the eastern Corn Belt and central Corn Belt, and then a couple pockets of above normal rainfall over North and South Dakota, small parts of Minnesota and Nebraska. So overall, very quiet. Now here's that close-up of where we had that very heavy rain. This area up here, you don't see that too often. That's 20 inches of rain just south of Dallas here, north of Austin, and this axis right here, that's extreme flooding, flash flooding, urban flooding, and pooling, widespread pooling of moisture, water on roadways. So the question is going to be, where is that going? Now, you probably see my post as well. That came from that all-time record 200-mile-per-hour Hurricane Patricia. Very small hurricane. The winds were very compact, but it was quite powerful, and we had moisture coming in from the Pacific. Now, one of the things that I look at like a hawk is not just the moisture at the Earth's surface, but at mid and upper levels. And what you get when you get that type of system, it transports that moisture inland. Even though it sort of broke down as it went over the mountains in Mexico, it transports at mid and high levels that moisture, and that's where that's coming from, the Pacific, and then from the Gulf of Mexico, we're getting low-level moisture. So the atmosphere is totally saturated all the way from the surface well up into the higher elevations of the atmosphere, and that's why we're getting so much heavy rain. Now, as far as temperatures go, most of the region, almost the entire Corn Belt, another warm week, especially in the western Corn Belt. Temperatures close to normal in the eastern Corn Belt. You can see that light shade of yellow, that's just very close to normal. Now, the story I'm going to tell really for the rest of this month into November looks pretty quiet, pretty uneventful. I talked about in the past a secondary severe weather season when the atmosphere starts to get more energized. I don't see that right now. So I don't see a lot of colors, blue or brown, and you know what that means by now. That means a jet stream pretty close to where it would normally be, and I don't see a lot of energy in that jet stream. Now, one thing we do have to watch this week is, I mentioned, where will Patricia go, the remains. I don't have a lot of confidence in these models. I've been watching them for days now. I think this is a very high degree of maybe error in where it goes. But right now, this is indicating late on Tuesday, sort of a movement like this, weakening, but a shield of rain over the eastern Corn Belt and the eastern U.S. We'll have to see. I think this will be adjusted a bit, but right now in this movement, it would bring a pretty good soaking rain over parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt towards the middle of the week. Now, temperatures this week, a little bit above or a little bit below normal. Overall, very close to normal, nothing exceptional. Let's go out a little bit further. Late October into early November. Possible dip in the jet stream over the eastern U.S., and that could bring some cooler air into the eastern Corn Belt. But nothing, again, all that fairly uneventful. I don't see any real extremes, either cold or hot. And thus we look at temperatures here, and we have a very large area of the Corn Belt near normal temperatures, with the exception of the upper Midwest that could average above normal a bit. Now, this is where it's interesting. This is getting out a ways. This is early November. The jet stream right now is forecast to sort of push up to the north here. And if it does that, and again, we're looking at early November, so this could change, that would result in above normal temperatures. So I think what I'm trying to say here is I don't see any sign of extremely pronounced cold temperatures. I see a better chance of persistently above normal temperatures, especially as we get out a couple weeks. So here's the rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. It does look like right now the axis of the heaviest rain will be east of this line right here. A couple pockets of modest rain to the west, but for the most part the moisture is being shunted off well off to the east. And again, I think this very well over the next couple days could be adjusted. It could be a little bit further north. If the system moves north, it could be a little bit more east if the system moves east. So here are your anomalies for week 1. If you don't get the rain from Patricia, indicated here in green, these are the above normal rainfall anomalies. Overall, it looks like a very quiet week, either normal or below normal precipitation. Week 2, normal, nothing all that exceptional. Neither week 3 or week 4. So we very well could be going into a fairly quiet time. We're beginning to get in the latter part of fall, and usually it gets more active, but right now it looks like the overall trend that I see, and I'm talking about the real general trend, not the day-to-day, not even maybe the week-to-week. The overall trend right now is matching up with that El Nino type pattern, mild and dry. So that's what we would expect if we're looking at El Nino, and that's what we're getting currently as we go through fall. But let's keep an eye on Patricia. If that moves a little bit further north, that could have a lot of variability, and it could bring more of a needed rainfall over parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt. I'll be putting out posts on that throughout the week to keep you updated, but right now it looks like it's going to be mainly the eastern Corn Belt. Have a great week. Finish up harvesting here this week. Hopefully we get in the fields in most areas, at least a good part of the week. Have a great week. Take care.